Ever since Arvind Kejriwal was granted bail by the Supreme Court, there has been a raging debate about the merits of the judgment. But so far, this debate had been limited to social media, except yesterday, for the first time perhaps, one of the strongest voices from within government spoke on the judgment that gave bail to Arvind Kejriwal. And in fact, that voice was none other than Home Minister Amit Shah. First, listen in to what he said.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट को अधिकार है न्याय की व्याख्या करने का,
पर पहली बार हो रहा है कि
मगर मैं मानता हूं ये रूटीन और नॉर्मल प्रकार का जुडिशियल जजमेंट नहीं है। काफी लोग देश में मानते हैं कि स्पेशल ट्रीटमेंट दिया गया है।
Now, a shocked Aam Aadmi Party released a statement saying that this was tantamount to the Home Minister questioning the wisdom of the Supreme Court itself. In fact, other alliance partners also said that this only showed that ultimately the government was trying to undermine the entire system of justice.
अब जब गृह मंत्री सवाल उठा रहे हैं, ये कानून का काम है, कोर्ट का काम है, न्यायालय का काम है। न्यायालय सारी चीज़ों का परीक्षण करता है, परीक्षण करने के बाद कार्यवाही करता है। तो अमित शाह के पक्ष में हो जाए तो सब ठीक है, अमित शाह के पक्ष में नहीं हो तो न्यायालय भी, कानून भी, संविधान भी जनता के हित में नहीं है, ऐसा उनका मानना है।
उन्होंने सुप्रीम कोर्ट की मंशा के ऊपर निशाना साधा है। ये ऐसा आपत्तिजनक बयान है जो मैं समझता हूं कि गृह मंत्री को, इस देश के गृह मंत्री को नहीं देना चाहिए। उस गृह मंत्री को जिसको शायद कानून की धाराएं का ज्यादा मालूम नहीं है।
Meanwhile, the Supreme Court today, during a hearing, again said that no special exceptions were made for Arvind Kejriwal. In fact, here's what the Supreme Court said. The remarks came even as Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, appearing for the ED, took exception to Arvind Kejriwal's comments while campaigning a few days ago. He had said that if you want that I do not go back to jail, you should vote for me. Now, this was quoted by the government counsel in the Supreme Court, and here's how the Supreme Court responded. They said, we have not carved out an exception for Arvind Kejriwal while granting him interim bail. However, critical analysis or criticism of the judgment was welcome. We'll play out for you what Arvind Kejriwal said in the course of his campaigning, which actually the government took exception to. But remember, since then, Hemant Soren, K. Kavita have all applied for bail. In fact, Hemant Soren so much so he quoted the precedent of Arvind Kejriwal seeking interim bail. However, it was not granted to him by the apex court, leading many to wonder if indeed this is some kind of special treatment or special exception has been made for the Chief Minister, and if yes, then why? All right, joining us on the debate now, we have with us, Tuhin Sinha continues with us. We also have with us Hitesh Jain, senior advocate, and Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate. Hitesh Jain, Aam Aadmi Party is saying, you always say, the BJP always says, the court has ruled. We must believe in the wisdom of the court. Now you have such a senior minister raising questions on the wisdom of the court, of the Supreme Court itself.
Well, frankly speaking, the order is unprecedented. An exception has been made which has got no place in the eyes of the law. What Honorable Amit Shah was pointing out was the unprecedented order and exceptional since independence or even before that. There has been no precedent where a person who's been accused of a heinous offense and a serious crime has been granted bail only for the purposes of campaigning. Now, Mr. Kejriwal is not the only person. There is Hemant Soren, there are others. So what is their crime and what is the yardstick you are going to apply? It is now going to be very easy for a criminal that even if he is inside, if he wants to come inside, what he has to do is file a nomination form. And how is his right going to be anything different than that of Mr. Kejriwal? You are giving a leeway to others, and it is all easy to say that this is one-off case. But how it is one-off case? Mr. Kejriwal is a chief minister. Mr. Hemant Soren is a chief minister. How are you going to basically what you are trying to do is prepare a special exception only for Mr. Kejriwal, and that is something legally, I mean, there are a lot of questions, and therefore we say when you create an exception only for one individual, then this becomes an unprecedented ruling. It's nothing wrong in criticizing it or making a comment that this is unprecedented, and exceptional order has been passed only for one individual.
So, Hitesh Jain, is the insinuation then that this order is politically motivated?
Well, I don't think we are saying it. Exception has been carved out for someone to go and campaign, which has not been given. You have not extended the similar benefit to other respondents. So definitely people will say that exception has been carved out only for Mr. Kejriwal for the purposes of campaigning in the election, which was like, then tomorrow, like suppose a farmer will come, a small shopkeeper will come. In the eyes of law, every person is the same. You cannot apply a different yardstick and basically try and distinguish or try and discriminate. Basically, what has happened is today you have allowed one person to do just come out and basically try and campaign, and look at the audacity of that person. I mean, he has been granted relief only for the purposes of campaigning, but claim kind of statements that are being made, they are shameless. He's brazening out something what has happened, something which serious offense. And people are observing. People are also observing as to what is happening when he has been let out, and the kind of audacious statement that you vote for me and the Supreme Court will change the verdict is in fact Mr. Kejriwal who is putting the judiciary in an awkward situation, and therefore obviously the common man is going to ask a question that when there is no condition in the Supreme Court order, Mr. Kejriwal trying to make a broad statement that you vote for me and I will not go to the jail for.
Okay.
Kejriwal dictating the orders to the Supreme Court.
Okay, hold on a second. I will play out in a minute exactly this statement that Arvind Kejriwal made in the course of campaigning just a few days ago. Sanjay Hegde, is this special treatment? That's what everyone is talking about on the street. And now the Home Minister is saying it. I quote again, I feel that this is not a routine and judicial judgment. A lot of people in the country believe special treatment has been given. Sanjay Hegde.
Well, special treatment did not start from the Supreme Court. You rarely have an event earlier where you put a chief minister in jail just at the time of elections. You cannot have free and fair elections. We are not Pakistan where you can lock away Imran Khan and then say, okay, elections are free and fair. So listen, there are circumstances out here where the court says, this is your case, I've heard most of it, the hearing is not over. In the meanwhile, elections are due. You have kept the man in. Today, I am going to give him bail so that at least his campaign is not stopped. In the meanwhile, the court is also looking at the main petition. The hearing went on all of today and will go on for a certain portion of time tomorrow as well. It is quite, I will not hazard a guess as to what will happen as far as the main petition is concerned, but the questioning has been intense. If anybody has followed the proceedings before the same bench today, they will realize that the government is not on a very easy wicket. There has been another judgment of the Supreme Court today in a totally unconnected matter, which also has put in fetters on the ED's powers to arrest people in a routine fashion. The ED has been used as a weapon of, political destruction as well. It's not as if the courts can keep on, sitting on their hands and doing nothing. So the Supreme Court, in this case, has said
Are you
Here's a
talking
sitting
about
chief
the Pradeep
minister.
Purkayast case, the NewsClick case?
No, I'm not talking of Purkayast. Purkayast also applies, but there is yet another judgment today of Justice Oka. I don't have the name of the case. So there are several cases now. As a pattern, the ED's cases are falling apart in the Supreme Court. So if the Supreme Court says that it thinks that it is going, that this case will take time, in the meanwhile, there is the proximity of the election, and it decides that you can't have a free and fair election, or you don't want a Pakistan-like election where somebody is locked away and the rest are allowed to play. So the Supreme Court says, okay, in this case we'll
but then
grant.
Why wasn't the same done for Hemant Soren?
Okay,
He
now
literally made the same argument. I am a chief
Yes.
minister. I have been in jail for longer than Arvind Kejriwal. I need to campaign. His wife is fighting an election.
Yes. As far as Hemant Soren is concerned, why Hemant Soren? I would say why didn't the Supreme Court give bail to Umar Khalid? Why hasn't the Supreme Court given bail to a lot of people in the Bhima Koregaon case? Yes, as far as Hemant Soren is concerned, I would think maybe the Supreme Court will grant bail sooner or later. In the difference in the two cases is that Arvind Kejriwal did not seek bail. He challenged his very arrest. Hemant Soren's bail petition was sent by the Supreme Court first to the High Court, and the High Court thereafter did not deliver a judgment for quite some time. The appeal against that was pending before the Supreme Court. The ED did not come on the first occasion. Therefore, the Supreme Court has now kept it. If memory serves me right, Hemant Soren's petition is also coming up tomorrow. So it is quite likely. Just
there
one
has
last
been
sentence.
arbitrary arrest,
sentence,
so
if
the
you don't
Supreme
mind.
Court cannot keep sitting on its hands. Okay, one last sentence, yes.
Yeah, and today the Punjab and Haryana High Court has now adopted the Kejriwal order and given bail to another Congress minister who was also taken in by the PMLA. This overbroad abuse of the ED and the PMLA jurisdiction is what has led to this whole series of bails.
Okay, Hitesh Jain, pushback by the Supreme Court to abuse of the law by Enforcement Directorate, and two, Arvind Kejriwal is not the exception. He is the rule which will be followed in other cases, perhaps even Hemant Soren. Hitesh Jain.
Well, I don't think the Supreme Court intended that this is a rule they are going to generally apply to the other cases, because by that logic, my learned friend is at pains to explain and try to distinguish Soren and all. Supreme Court, under its jurisdiction, if it has granted the bail to Arvind Kejriwal, it can grant on the same principle immediately to Hemant Soren. So the fact is that the Supreme Court has created an exception only for Arvind Kejriwal. That is point number one. Point number two, Supreme Court has not made clear. Now, if Supreme Court is going to carve out a separate case for politicians also, it is going to be equally dangerous. What is the offense of the common man? Tomorrow there is a farmer, tomorrow there is a small-time shopkeeper. Everybody has a right to life. They also have a right to do their own get their own living and all. So ultimately what you are doing, everybody is just in the name of, it's very all easy to say abuse and all. At the end of the day, there was no answer for the scam. The fact is that at the end of the day, there was no answer on material aspects. In a given similar case for any common man, there has been no exceptions that have been carved out. Bail applications are pending for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Sometimes, like the hearings also takes time. So the common man is really asking a question that are the politicians, or is Mr. Kejriwal, who calls himself a Aam Aadmi, is a special or Khas Aadmi? Now, is he a leader of a Khas Aadmi party who deserves an exceptional treatment from the Supreme Court? This is the question I think even the lawyers or even the Supreme Court is going to find very difficult. And if it is going to make a precedent, it's going to be further bad, because you are then opening a Pandora's box by giving an impression to the common man that you should be a politician and then you should be accused of serious crime. No matter what, you will get umpteen opportunities to be released on bail. You can easily, every politician will claim that there has been abuse. Every politician claims that he is a victim. If no politicians will accept that he is involved in the fraud, he will always play a victim card. And then like Mr. Hegde and all, they come with the argument, for them the Supreme Court on a Sunday is a Supreme Court of Pakistan, on Monday it is a Supreme Court of China, and when it gives one judgment, then it becomes like democracy is alive. So such characters are always there who will keep on cribbing and criticizing. It is their job to criticize the Supreme Court. Obviously, they should take such characters and their comments who describe the Supreme Court as Supreme Court of Pakistan and China.
Because this kind of exception, or the Supreme Court deciding to push back against the arbitrariness, is emboldening politicians. Arvind Kejriwal last week said, vote for me, I will never go back to jail, despite the fact the court has told him to surrender on the 2nd of June. Today, he repeated that. Let's listen to what he said, and then I'll come to you.
दोस्तों, अभी मेरे को 20 दिन की मोहलत मिली है कि चुनाव प्रचार कराओ। ये तो मैं आप लोगों की कृपा है, जनता की इतनी आवाज उठी कि मेरे को बेल मिल गई, नहीं तो चमत्कार ही था जी उस दिन जो जज साहब ने। मैं दोबारा जेल जाऊंगा कि नहीं जाऊंगा ये आपके ऊपर है। 25 मई को अगर आपने कमल का बटन दबा दिया तो मेरे को जेल जाना पड़ेगा, और अगर आपने इंडिया गठबंधन को जिता दिया तो मेरे को जेल जाने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी।
Sanjay Hegde, isn't this a challenge to the Supreme Court? Supreme Court is saying surrender. He's saying I won't, as long as you vote for me.
He doesn't say that. He says that on the 25th, if you vote for the BJP, I will end up in jail. He doesn't say that in this case or any other case. Long ago, Jayalalitha, when she was convicted and continued as Chief Minister, took a stand before the Supreme Court that the people's verdict is the ultimate verdict. Politicians are entitled to latitude. Politicians can appeal often, and whether it is in India or whether it's in the US, they appeal to the public over the heads of the court. That is what politicians do. And when this was raised before the Supreme Court has said that this does not violate its order. Now, you want to give a spin on it? Fine, do that. But Padmaja, I am absolutely livid that when somebody calls me a character on your show, you do not pull that person up. I'm sorry, that's not done.
Hitesh Jain.
Well, I am all this people's verdict and all, you wait for 4th June, and when we are going to get the resounding mandate, the same Mr. Sanjay Hegde will say that how this people's verdict has got no meaning, democracy has been abused, institutions are in danger. They will, as I say, these are arguments of convenience. They will have 1,000 excuses, and they have no way they can justify this exceptional orders. Today, Arvind Kejriwal is dictating to the Supreme Court, and we as a lawyers are worried that the way the politicians are dictating the court, what kind of messaging, and then we have a lobby who always who is sitting and pressurizing the Supreme Court, calling them Supreme Court of Pakistan and China. I think this is a very dangerous comments that is being doing. This mischievous rumor mongering is not good for the institution, and neither such exceptions, when it is carved, it does not create common confidence in the mind of common man.
Okay, and final word, Sanjay Hegde. Can only such exceptions be made for the politicians then? What about the common man? What about a farmer? What about a shopkeeper? Their work, their life, their freedom is just as important.
The original order itself says that there have been several times that the court has made exceptions. The court says that this is not an exception. There have been times when people have been given in bail for writing exams, for tending to their crops, or if there is a death in the family. So when there is a circumstance which is overwhelming and that the legal process can be held back for some time, because it's not as if there is an ongoing trial which has been disrupted. Even today, there is no trial.
Okay.
We are nowhere near the possibility of a trial. So all that the ED is arguing is, we have the power to arrest anyone, and then you do not have the power to give anyone bail, no matter what the circumstance. Okay. That is not it. That is not how a rule of law operates.
All right. All right, you've had two legal minds give you two sides of that argument. Was this special treatment or just the court saying we cannot have a miscarriage of law, we cannot have arbitrary arrest, and that is why we need to step in? I'll leave it to your wisdom. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining me. Thanks for watching.